What drove public sentiment away from nuclear? Russia is known to be a source of this.
No.
China has built dozens of reactors and is currently building 30. Funded far left environmental groups to advocate for shutting down nuclear power in Europe so that Europe would become more dependent on Russian natural gas. The administration recognizes that we must beat China on AI, on manufacturing. So what drove public sentiment away from nuclear? Well, I think it was a combination of like people naturally fear new things, the atomic bombs and the nuclear bombs sort of being associated with nuclear, and then I think some really specific intentional propaganda. I believe that rivals of the United States have continuously funded environmental groups to spread a narrative about nuclear and even to sue nuclear projects.
Where did that stem from?
So I think there's a couple sources. Russia is known to be a source of this.
No shit.
This is public record now, that Russia, most recently, like in the last 5 years in Europe, funded far left environmental groups to advocate for shutting down nuclear power in Europe so that Europe would become more dependent on Russian natural gas.
Wow.
This is just public record.
I did not know that.
Yeah. So, I mean, they fell head over heels for the Psyop, that nuclear was unsafe, that it was not clean, right? This is sort of this is the biggest scandal of environmental policy, environmental advocacy in the last 50 years, is that the environmental, the environmental groups in theory have good goals, right? You want the earth to be clean. You don't want to pollute it. You want our kids to be able to live in beautiful places with nature. And so on the surface, it's very easy to get people to get on board with that mission. But nuclear energy is so obviously the best possible solution to clean power. It's just pure physics. It emits no carbon. It emits no particulates. The only thing that you have to deal with after running a nuclear reactor is incredibly, incredibly small, safe pellets that you encase into concrete casks, and they have no effect on the environment at all, right? So there's basically no impact to the environment, and they provide clean power. So like this is a very, very obvious thing that environmental groups should love, but they were co-opted. They were co-opted by external money that wanted the nuclear industry to fail, and wants the United States to fail, and wanted Europe to fail, or become more dependent on other sources from our rivals. And so I think that, and a lot of people just bought into that. A lot of people, there's always good people in any bad thing. And the good people just believed the narrative. They believed that nuclear was unsafe, and they believed that, nuclear waste was a huge problem. Neither of those things are true. Nuclear waste is not a huge problem. And nuclear reactors are the safest form of power generation on Earth, full stop.
And so are you saying that Russia funded U.S.
That's correct.
NGOs to basically,
absolutely
shit on the nuclear?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Just like they did in Europe.
Yes. The Sierra Club. If any members of Congress want to start some investigations, I would start by looking at the Sierra Club and the advocacy that they did against nuclear, especially around environmental law. They figured out how to essentially shut down nuclear by suing over safety regulations and environmental policy to prevent nuclear projects from happening, and obviously, mass sort of social advocacy against nuclear.
Wow.
And I believe that they had significant foreign funding to push those narratives.
Wow. What are some of the government players that get in the way? I have DOD, DOE, NRC.
Yeah, so this is an interesting one, right? Like let's talk about why regulations exist and what the good case for regulation is, right? So nuclear has the potential to cause harm to humans and the environment if it's done wrong. And we need to do a lot of it, right? So the natural conclusion to that is you need a regulator. A regulator is going to protect the public and protect the environment from things going wrong in nuclear energy. This is the same for any mass industry, right? If you have a chemical plant, you have regulators which make sure that those chemicals aren't going to leak into the river, right? If you have even a coal station, right, or a natural gas station, you're going to have regulators which make sure that it doesn't blow up and it doesn't, kill people. So this is a good thing that we have as part of society. Now, one thing I think people miss about regulations is that regulators in particular, really only know how to regulate things that exist. They don't know how to regulate things that don't exist yet. And what that means is that you have to always have an open space for innovation, right? We're an innovative country. We're a country that sources a lot of our power in the political sense, from technology. We are a technological society that wields power throughout the world through our technological supremacy. And if you want that to maintain, if you want that to stay true, you need innovation. You need to continue allowing entrepreneurs to push what technology is forward every year. And the way that you do that is you allow them to innovate and you allow them to test. So the mistake that regulators sometimes make in various industries is that they try to apply the same regulatory framework to existing technology. They try to take that and then apply it to innovation. That doesn't work, right? Because innovation is new, right? Innovation is about technology that doesn't exist yet. And you can only regulate things that exist. Like you're putting down guardrails around a thing that exists. Mm-hmm. So some industries have figured out how to do this really well. So I would say aviation is a good example. Aviation has a robust test framework where if you have an idea for an airplane, you can go take it out into the desert, you can build your plane, and you can fly it, and you can even crash it, right? You try not to crash it, but like there's a regulatory framework that allows you to test. And what that means is that in aerospace, you get to very, very quickly move through these different prototypes, and aviation is now this incredibly safe thing, right? It's safer than driving, right? Flying on a commercial jet is safer than driving your car. And the only reason that's possible is because the regulators have created this space where innovators can just like test stuff. So that's what's been missing in nuclear primarily. You can talk about all sorts of other problems with the NRC. We should talk about ALARA, talking about linear no threshold, some of the bad policies that have taken the sort of existing industry and corrupted it and made it expensive. But I would say even more fundamental than that is that you have to test. If we're going to be dominant in nuclear, you have to allow innovators, entrepreneurs, technologists to create a small reactor, turn it on, and test it out. If you can't do that, you don't have an industry, or at least you won't have an industry in a decade or two.
Who is the NRC?
So the Nuclear Regulatory Commission is a commission created by Congress in the Atomic Energy Act of 1946. It's sort of gone through a couple iterations and various acts of Congress since then, but it has 5 commissioners, and it's responsible for regulating nuclear. And I would say it's not done a good job of that. And the evidence for the fact that it has not done a good job of that is since 1979, the NRC has approved 4 construction permits. 4. 1, 2, 3,
Since
4.
when?
Since 1979.
Jeez.
In the meantime, China has built dozens of reactors and is currently building 30. Right? So there are 30 nuclear reactors under construction in China today.
Wow.
And that's a brand new thing for China, right? China has like just gotten into this. But since 1979, the NRC has granted 4 construction permits. That's a dead regulator, right? That is a regulator which needs rapid overhaul, fundamental overhaul. And the Trump administration is working on that. So I'm very grateful about that.
It sounds like the Trump administration's been very easy to work with for innovators like yourself. And so what are they doing that's different?
Absolutely. Listen, I think this Trump administration is going to usher in the nuclear golden age. I am unbelievably excited about it. This administration is very unique. I have never seen such a density of talented, motivated people working in government before. If you talk to the people who are in the White House, who are in the agencies today, they are not the people that you would normally see, working in government. In many, many cases, they are people who are taking sometimes 10x pay cuts, right? They're making 10% of what they were making in the private sector, but they're doing it out of a spirit of national service, right? They believe that this is an existential threat to the country, to fix these issues, to be able to make power again. And so you have people making genuine life sacrifices to work in government and to fix it. And I mean, you have to give President Trump credit for that in bringing this unbelievably talented, motivated group of people together to do that. It's all action, right? If you go into any of the agencies today, you would have seen in the last 20 years, really, you would have seen a lot of policies and a lot of papers and a lot of thoughts and very little action. And today it's all action everywhere.
Wow. Are you in contact with Chris Wright, Secretary of Energy?
So Chris is like probably the best example of this, and it's like, easy for me to say because I'm in nuclear and the DOE is leading the charge on this. But from Chris all the way down through his staff, you have the most motivated people I've ever seen picking up the baton from the president. There's these executive orders that went out 3 weeks ago, and they basically gave the mandate to the Department of Energy that we need to turn on nuclear reactors immediately. And in fact, they set a date. So by July 4th, 2026, the president has ordered that the DOE allow 3 advanced reactors to turn on American soil outside the national lab system. So this is unbelievably exciting. It's what the nuclear industry has been waiting for decades. This is what we need. This is that test framework that we have to have in order to beat China. And again, like the reason this is happening is that the administration recognizes that we must beat China on AI, on manufacturing. We have to reshore the ability to build things in the real world. And so I would say everybody in the administration is absolutely focused and dialed on.
No matter where you're watching Shawn Ryan Show from, if you get anything out of this, please like, comment, subscribe, and most importantly, share this everywhere you possibly can. And if you're feeling extra generous, please leave us a review on Apple and Spotify podcasts.